All right, so man, we're gonna jump right in. So, what we're gonna do today? Originally, I said chapters 1 through 6 of developing leaders in the local church. That ebook, I printed it out just because I was jotting notes. Um, but as I remember as I started reading through it, chapters 1 through 5 are really a section, and then this 6 through 12 are basically another section. So, our discussion today is going to be over chapters 1 through 5. And then the other book is Replicate. This book is really,
I
yes,
got it. I
yeah.
have it.
I
Yes,
thought I gave it to you.
today I just
Yeah,
found it.
good.
It was because I we moved and we I just I
Yeah,
didn't know where to have.
Adam, I think did I give you this book? Okay, perfect. And Gabby, did you find an e version or
I tried to, but I didn't. But
okay,
I read the developing leaders in a
okay,
local church.
all right.
So the whole
Hey,
book.
Fonnie, do you have a copy of this? I thought I gave you
No,
two.
just this. I don't
Just
know
the
why
one.
I don't have.
Okay, Gabby, I will look and see if I can find an ebook version of this, so that you can get that because, yeah, shipping things to you, I don't know how long it even take it to get there. So I'll look for. So we'll see how
It
much we
was
discuss of this. We're going to start with developing leaders in the local church, that ebook.
1 week. I He had to wait until he got the two books that I sent him.
Oh, okay,
So
gotcha.
in Romania, 1 week.
So I didn't give you another copy of that. I apologize. I thought I gave you two. Oh well, we'll find it.
Uh,
I
Finally
think
gave
that
me
I think there has to be
gaining
an ebook.
by losing. So
Gaining by
I'm on
losing.
that book right now. So
Okay, all right. Yeah, we finished our discussion on that one. So what we're gonna do, we'll jump in developing leaders in the local church. I emailed you all just some notes that I took from this. I thought it would be easier for you just to follow along that way. If you open up your email, you should see that. Um, but there are some discussion questions, the things in there that I want us to talk through as we discuss the chapter. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk through chapters 1 through 5 and just talking about our role as church planners in developing leaders in the local church. One of the needs that's out there that obviously because you are seeking to plant a church, or finding you're seeking to be a church that's planting churches, is that there is a huge need for more churches to be planted. And so, if we're going to do that, we need to be developing leaders within our ministries so that we can train them up and send them out to plant churches, send them out to do what God's calling them to do. And so that's what we really want to look at here is how do we develop leaders within our church? And so the introduction, just a couple of things that it points out on page 3. It says, look behind any great leader and you will find a coach or a mentor. It says great leaders, they don't become great leaders on their own. They bear the fruit of someone else's investment. And then as you think about it, page 4 says, what matters is not your position, but how you leverage your life for God and others. And so that introduction really just talks about one, the importance of having people develop you as a leader. If you look at any of us, we can point back to people who invested into us, which made it possible for us to be in the positions that we are in. So as you think about that, just a couple of questions I want us to talk through and just make it personal with you is the first one is how did you get where you are in leadership? And I'll throw that to anybody that wants to jump in. So thinking about that, how did you get to where you are in leadership? So who was it that invested in you, coached you, mentored you, or discipled you, that prepared you and brought you to the place that you're at now in leadership in the church or local ministry like the hub?
I guess for me it was a process. It started with my teachers from high school. Then I had a lot of people even in the university, teachers. Then it came the local church, some pastors there, some people there. Then you, Brad, and Gerald and Pictures came in my life. So I had a lot of coaches in my life. I guess it was very good that all the personality was different. So uh, I love it. The idea of having others in my life, not just one or two, so that I could, you know, have had more experience uh, with others, and try to look uh, there and there and try to have a whole perspective with uh, now where I am as a pastor.
Yeah. So what did some of that look like for you as far as was it a formal setting or was it more of just as you were living your life and walking through life, they were teaching, instructing, encouraging?
Uh, depend when I've been in high school and in university. Of course, it was so focused. It was only about being pastor and trying to accumulate a lot of information. But then after when I got in the real life, uh, I think I think after this, after finish my school and everything, I think I had a lot of people who in the daily life,
Hmm.
they helped me a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was more important, in high school or in daily life, but it's a great question, Brad.
Yeah. I like what you said. It's a process, you know,
Hmm.
and we all need that coaching, that leadership development all throughout. Like I still need people coaching me, regardless of how long I've been in ministry. I still need those people in my life that are investing into me and challenging me, correcting me when I need it, things like that. So it is very much a process and it's an ongoing
Yeah.
process. How about you, Gabby?
I think
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
just one. I think the biggest challenge for me and probably for you guys, Adam and Gabby, it was when you Brad and Gerald challenged me. What if
Mm,
you were gonna start a church? So uh, so let's say you learn a lot, you have your time to learn, but when the challenge comes in your life, then you have the biggest test. It's just my
mm,
experience. I don't know what you are living right now, guys.
yeah. I think that's part of it too, is being a good coach, mentor, is planting those seeds um, of opportunities in front of people that maybe they don't think maybe they didn't see it in themselves. And I think we've even spoken to that with Adam about Chris approaching he and Ashley about leading the hub. Maybe he didn't see that in himself at first, but them speaking that over him, then he starts praying about it and seeing it. Well, maybe God is calling me to do this, where you don't see that
Mm.
at first, but others see it in you. And I think that's part of good coaching is you see things in them that they don't yet see in themselves. And I think that's a great aspect of coaching. How about Gabby? How about you? How'd you get to where you are in leadership? So who are some people that invested into you, mentored, coached you, and kind of what was that process like for you?
As Fanny said, there were a lot of men that influenced my life, but it depends a lot on the domains that we are speaking about. Because on leadership and preaching and being a pastor, there was my father. My father, he was a pastor. Right now, he's old and he is retired. He was a very good preacher. He was an evangelist. and a very profound man in scriptures. And in a way, he modeled for me this calling to preach, to be a good leader. But in some other and others, I had a lot of friends in my father's generation, a lot of friends there from whom I learned and with whom I had discussions on this subject of leadership. But what I discovered during the years is that every one of us has an area where he is, um, how do you say this? He is sensitive,
Okay.
uh, where you can be very easily fooled by the devil. We carry with us areas where we are easily tempted.
Yeah.
So um, in this area, I think you need to have somebody who has your heart to speak with you on this, because it's not only if you have good qualities like a good preacher or you are a good leader, you need to be uh, somebody who is authentic with God, with Jesus. So in this area, I don't think I had a lot of models. I think I read a lot. I have a lot of um, books that I read on how to be powerful, to be strong-hearted, how to I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, where I'm, but in Romania, at least, we do not have, at least from my part, I don't know, Fanny, but I didn't have somebody to coach me so uh, um, close to me. So some struggles I was on my own, and for me it was very helpful to read a lot and to learn from others that wrote from their perspectives. What does it mean to be a leader? And where I'm right now, I'm on a new road. I never thought I would be a planter. My whole life I was a pastor. I never thought I would plant a church, and I'm in need. I need somebody to coach me to mentor me in this road. So for me, it's wonderful to meet you and to be with you, and kind of this is my story right now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. And I hope we are an encouragement to you. And I'll always do my best to help you. And if I don't have the answers, to connect you with people that can help you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. How about you, Adam?
For me, mainly Chris and Ashley,
Yeah.
they were the best. I know, yes, they were. But so I spent with them a lot of time, 4 years, and especially since we were together at the hub 4 days a week, we got to talk a lot or experience, and I got to see firsthand the ministry. So mainly them, but also in the church, there were two guys who I got to talk with over the last 5 years, and they encourage and share good thoughts. And so these are the most. And then to say also many YouTubers, YouTube videos, or some books. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. So I think we could all agree with the statement that was made in the introduction on page 3, where it says, if you look behind any great leader, you'll find a coach or mentor. And great leaders don't become great leaders on their own, they bear the fruit of someone else's investment. So all of you can talk about people that did invest into your life, and now we're seeing the fruit of their investment. So as you think about that, as you think about being someone that's developing leaders in your ministry and in your church, I would just say, hey, challenge yourself and think about the things that meant a lot to you, in that, like you said, Fonnie, within that process of becoming a leader. And just look for ways to where you can do that for others. And like you said, Fonnie, sometimes it may be in a formal setting, and then it may just be, very informal, over coffee, over a meal at your house, playing games or whatever it is. But just living life together. But I think what it is that the primary word is to just be intentional with that. But I would challenge you and always be looking for people in your church that you see that potential in. Just like someone saw that in you, you look out for people so that you can invest into them. So looking at it next is chapter 1 talks about stocking the pond, and he shares a story about when he was a kid. There was a pond at I think his grandpa's house, and they would go fishing and they had fun. They caught all the fish, but they didn't put the fish back, and now all the fish were gone. And so they couldn't catch any more fish because there were no more fish in the pond. And so you had to restock the pond with more fish. So they talked about that within our churches and some of the issues that are going on. And this is from the context of this book is written by a pastor in a Southern Baptist church. So it's written from this perspective of the Southern Baptist Convention in North America, United States church planting. So as you read this book, understand that's the context that it's coming from. But he said the greatest obstacle to planting more churches is not a lack of funds, it's a lack of planters. And I say the same thing for us as a church. You know, we want to be a church that's continuing to plant churches. Well, we have money sitting in a fund for church planting, but right now we don't have that next planter to plant the church. And so that's kind of in the same boat we're at. Page 7, it says more churches are being planted. He said there's just one problem. Everyone is fishing from the same pond and nobody's restocking it. We are recruiting leaders, but we are not developing them. And so he's saying that's what we've got to do a better job of in our churches is to develop the leaders. Right now, we're just recruiting leaders. Hey, you're already a leader. Would you come and plant a church with us? Rather than building leaders within your church to train them up to be able to plant a church. This is
Brad,
all
I
the,
have a
yes,
question.
yes, sir.
So, so you're in charge with, planting church. What do you think? What's the reason people or missionary or pastors or whatever? What do you think? What is their problem or what are their fears?
Hmm.
They don't want to plant church.
Yeah,
Well, in
I
your
think,
experience,
sure. I think the fear of failure, maybe. Um, it's a big deal to step out, walk away from maybe your job, walk away from your career to say, I want to do this in a full-time capacity. I think that there's a fear behind that. What if I think that the questions aside of what if I fail? You know, I think people have doubts.
mm,
Maybe they doubt themselves and their abilities. Um, and if you notice, a lot of what I think the setback is too much attention on self rather than dependency upon the Holy Spirit. You remember Christ, I mean, the Holy Spirit's the one that builds the church anyway, right? It's not us. Um, but I think it's just maybe some self-doubt, I think a lot. Or maybe, as we'll talk about later in this book, in chapter 5 about the characteristics of a church planter, maybe
yeah.
it's a lack of a true core conviction of it. Um, and I think that that could be a hindrance. If it's not a true conviction, then they will not say yes to that. I mean that's
Mm.
just some of the reasons. Maybe what was some of your hesitations at first?
My
Yeah,
hesitation.
yeah,
I felt I am not ready for
yeah,
this, so it was like, let's do it. I'm not ready, but I will try something
yeah,
like this.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's where a lot of people stand is they feel like I'm not prepared enough to do it. And so sometimes we tell
Mm,
them, hey, well, some people you got to go to seminary. So you spend 4 years in university studying, and that's 4 years that you haven't been out, planting the church. And then who knows what happens during that 4 year period. But I think that's another one. I don't feel qualified.
mm,
There's many reasons,
yeah,
many reasons. Um, one of the things he said, and on page 7, it says all the leaders needed for the next generation of churches can be found within our congregations. And I think part of what we've got to do as pastors, especially you, Fonnie, and myself, with the stage of where we are in our churches, is we have to view every church member as a potential planter and not limit people. Because there's probably an Adam sitting in our church, you know. There's probably a Fonnie sitting in our church. There may be a Gabby sitting in our church that says, "Man, I never thought I'd be a planter, but maybe a pastor, but not a planter." And so I think we need to just have eyes that are looking at potential leaders. So as we think about that, looking at people as potential planters, what does it look like for you to develop leaders in your church?
Let me try to maybe just to share with you uh, one one thing that I want to. I'm trying to challenge men uh, to come forward 2-3 minutes to read the scripture, one verse or maybe two, and share a thought, and that's it. So I just started two weeks ago with a few people. This Sunday we'll have another one that he didn't, came forward for from 2 years ago, I guess. So some small steps for me.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great way to start to begin having those conversations and just see what comes out of those meetings with those men. You never know.
I have a question.
Okay.
So maybe I will try to answer it, but um, what do you think about somebody who has an issue, a problem? You see in him some qualities, but maybe he has an issue with smoking, and his wife says to him, "You are not qualified to be a leader in that area because you have this problem. You cannot fight this. He is a good husband. But he has a problem. And what I did was I met with this person. I tried to give him hope in my discussions with him, and um, in the same time, I try to be very careful on
Sure.
the testimony that he has to his wife and maybe to others in his domain. So let's say I see him as a leader, but he
Yeah.
has this issue. How do you see
Yeah,
things?
that's a great question. It's something we run into all the time. Um, I think you got to, and every church has different standards of qualifications that they have for leaders. So Fonnie always laughs at me and our church because we have an issue with alcohol. And so one of the things I had to sign here at our church as a pastor is that I will refrain from any alcohol at all. So not even so we so we don't even use wine for communion. We use grape juice. Um, even that, and I think it's a very Western thing, or actually a very Baptist Western thing. I see all of you in Europe are kind of laughing right now, but that's one for
So
us. Yeah, I
when
know
we
Jesus
will
turned
go,
water into wine. I get it. It's not my
let's
rule.
go in Czech Republic, and
I
there
know.
we can have a wine.
I know. I know. Uh, and then I will say, Fonnie and them snuck me some rum cake when I was there and didn't tell me what it was. Said, you had alcohol. But no, but that's one. So I know, like for us, like when you serve in different capacities within our church, so as a deacon or so, we ask that, hey, while you serve in this role, that you refrain from alcohol. Not saying you can never, but as you serve in this leadership capacity, is that. And so we just have that talk up front with because that is just the standard that our church and denomination have um, as of now. That'll never change as long as Rusty's involved, I promise you. But um, it may change in the future, who knows? But that is one of those areas. And so we would have that conversation, Gabby, where you were talking about like smoking. Ours would probably be more towards the use of alcohol. Now there's other areas where you can lead. Actually, we joke because that's not one of my qualifications for being a church planter. So like we're like you can plant a church and drink, but you can't be a deacon. Anyway, um, that's just some of our hypocrisy, I guess, or inconsistency there. But I think you just have that conversation with them. Man, is it just a stronghold on their life? Um, we don't need to be overtaken by anything. You can plug in anything, not just smoking and stuff like that, but um, it could be lust. It could be, I mean, anything that has a hold over your life. Hey, are you willing to give this up, for ministry's sake? Knowing that, this may be a hindrance for people that you're trying to lead or that you're trying to shepherd or disciple. What you see is, nothing major could be a stumbling block for somebody else. Um, and so that's kind of the way I would view the alcohol thing for us on my end. Um, I don't think it's wrong to go and have a drink, but if, somebody from our church sees me at a bar, they don't know how much I've had. And it could be a hindrance for them to see me in that way, potentially. But I think you just got to have a standard within your church and whatever your elders believe and put out there. And it's going to be different culturally. So I think if I we would have forced ourselves, we did not force our take on Fani and City Light Church in Timmy Shore, because
So
culturally it would not have made sense.
let me tell you, this is a
Sure.
true story, Gabby, with somebody from our church. So he came to our course with catechism, about baptism, and he had this problem with smoking, of course, and he couldn't give up, So
Mm.
in that morning, he just jumped in the baptism when I challenged the church, and I knew that he has this problem. I baptized him. He had the same problem after he got baptized, but we stood up with him. He came to a small group, guys. People was praying for him. We never judged him. It was very difficult because in my mind, with my culture, my university, with what you just told me, Gabby, it's, I wanted to jump his neck and to say, hey, give up on this. But we love him, small groups are the same. So it was like a miracle. He told us that when he will gonna stop smoking for one day, he will gonna give up 100%. So I think after 1 month after he got baptized, or maybe 2 months, why not? I don't remember. He one day he didn't smoke for one day, so that was his final cigarette. But I'm telling you, I was thinking, people they know that I know that he is smoking, and I baptized him. He's member in City Life. It was difficult. It was rough, about what kind of model do I go with. but now he's 100%, he's so involved in City Light. He's with it's in the coffee room, he's serving people, he's going to small rooms. So I took a risk, but it's never the same story for everybody. So
Yeah, and I think like
yeah,
you said, it's going to be a process. Like you receive salvation instantly, you're saved. But as far as the sanctification process, like it's a process. Um,
right.
I mean, there are some people who, as soon as they get saved, like they drop every sin. That's just not very realistic or normal. It's a process. And until it's a core conviction within them, it's going to be hard for them to change. And so I would just say, one, disciple people into that, be patient with it. And then, but there's also there's a different standard for being a leader. And so as you think about giving people leadership roles in the church, like baptizing somebody, allowing them to become a member, that's one thing. They're not going to have everything together. There's going to be issues that they're going to continue to work through. But before you put people in leadership position, just understand, hey, for me as a pastor, like there's a standard that whether it's fair or not, like I need to live at a different standard because of my position here. So as you start thinking about leadership roles, then you'll start defining those qualities and characteristics. And we'll talk about that actually in chapter 5 today. So I would just say, man, mentor and coach him through that and disciple him through that, Gabby.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
yeah,
It's important because leaders are not uh, perfect
no,
when they come to Christ, and
no,
Christ changes their life. And afterwards, you need to coach them and disciple them, like you said. So we
yeah,
have people that have a story, they have a history,
hmm,
and in the same time, they need to confess that Christ changed their lives.
yeah,
And your question was, how does it look in your church to develop
hmm,
leaders? Well, from my experience until now, I see that the main problem in developing leaders is not abilities. It's
hmm.
a heart given to Christ fully, and
And that takes time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
this
I
was
think,
one of the
yeah,
one of the issues, because they will be a leader and they will be confronted with different aspects of sin in the lives of people that they will serve. And if they do not know the wonderful power of Christ,
hmm,
they will be they will not know what to say. So what? Yeah, thank you. I'm
yeah.
not good in English, but I
No, it's
understood
good.
you
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Yeah, and another thing is this, man, probably what you're going to be reaching people who are non-believers. Maybe they're far from God. Maybe they are the first generation believer in their family. And so, man, it's going to be a process of they don't have a clue of how to deal with sin. They don't know what conviction is. And hey, I just always live my life like this, and now all of a sudden there's a whole new standard that I'm supposed to be, following and submitting to, and it's all going to be brand new. So it's going to be a process of walking them through that. So just make the
Yeah.
commitment that it's going to be a slow road, maybe. Chapters 2 and 3, we're going to lump those together because they're both very much just about coaching. So the chapter 2, it says, what is coaching? And so it talks about 3 kinds of coaches. One is a mentor. A mentor is someone, they tell you what to do based on their own experiences. So, we're all qualified to mentor people based on what we have experienced. Then you think of a counselor. A counselor, they get to know your heart, your desires, and your fears that drive your decisions. It says page 10, it says we need counselors because of what gets us stuck has more to do with internal forces than external circumstances. So, like that counselor is that person that really is able to get to the heart of people. And then the third one is just your typical coach. What you think of is they do not necessarily tell people what to do, but they help them figure out what to do. So church planters, they need coaches that help them reach their potential. And Mike McDaniel, who wrote this ebook, he talks about how he's coaching church planters while he's never himself planted a church before. And I can relate to that because I've never planted a church before. But I'm coaching people who are planting churches. And so for me, what I've got to do is help people reach their full potential. Sometimes that means I just serve as someone who can just network and connect them to people who can mentor because they've walked through that. But that's kind of my role as a church. And another thing it said in chapter 2 is that coaching is a skill. It says if you're a leader, you can coach. It says the most critical abilities have nothing to do with church planting, just wise leadership. It's giving feedback, asking good questions, listening, and correcting. And that's skills that any leader can acquire. And so those are the different types of coaches. And I think we need all three types in our lives. We do need those people who can mentor us that have walked down this road before. We do need these people that can counsel us because sometimes, man, there's just internal things where they're like Fanny was saying, just doubting myself, or whatever it may be. There's internal things that we need someone to address in our lives. And then there's also just that coach that can, see that potential in you and help push you there. Sometimes you can find that all in one person. A lot of times it's going to be multiple people that are coaching you. Rarely will you find somebody that can do all three of those, but sometimes you can. So be looking for that. And then it talks about 5 characteristics of coaches in chapter 3. It's the church man or church woman. That's someone who loves, leads, and serves in the church. Every church has people like this. They just love the local church and they serve and lead in it. Then there's a leader. Church planners must be leaders because everything rises and falls on leadership. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You need a church planting champion. Coaching begins with recruiting, and you can't advocate for something you don't love. I remember when we first started going down this road of wanting to be a church that's planting churches. That's what a mentor church. That's what he said to me is like you've got to find somebody that can champion this for you. And so what we did was we started just looking at some of the church planters that we were already partnering with, and man, really encourage them. Hey, will you be willing to help us? So we took teams out to their church to visit them, and they poured into our church to help champion church planting for us. Another characteristic is that they are spiritually and emotionally mature. Developing leaders is messy, whether it's working through smoking or sin issues or whatever it is. It's messy. So you cannot invest in someone's life without getting personal. So a coach must be able to step outside the situation and lead with both humility and boldness. And then the last is a mentor's heart. At its core, coaching entails a willingness to invest in people's lives. And they invest in others, not for personal gain, but for the benefit of the person that they are coaching. And so as you think about that, the question is who is coaching you? Formally, informally, who is it that's coaching you?
Uh, uh, Brad, can you develop a little bit the idea of church planting champion?
Yeah.
What is a
Yeah, basically,
synonym?
as you think about that, the characteristic is you having a passion for church planting and seeing there's a core conviction that churches need to be planted. And it's something that, hey, man, I believe it to my core in the depth of my soul. And so I'm going to tell others about it. I'm going to talk to others about it. I'm going to talk to other churches about it. I'm going to do things like this right here and start a residency to tell more people about church planting. Like that's what I'm trying to do, even with this group, is to champion the idea that every church is to be a church planting church.
Is there a difference between championing an idea and modeling an idea?
What do you mean? Modeling an idea or champion? Sorry.
You know, I don't grasp the idea very well. What does it mean to be a church planting champion?
It's
Hmm.
I think it's like when a sportive, when a soccer player or a team player, they are the best, and they are just like we love this,
Hmm.
we are the champion, we can do everything, something like this. I
There's a
So
passion there.
inspire to
Someone that
a
is
passion.
passionate. Yeah, someone that's passionate about church planting. Maybe a better
Okay,
way to understand it.
okay.
A characteristic of a church planting
So
coach is someone that
in
is
your question,
passionate about, yeah,
in your question, who is coaching you?
yeah.
At this moment, I think in Romania we have a problem on this subject because from my experience until now, I do not know somebody who has this coaching heart
Hmm.
in planting churches near us. And I think I spoke with Fane several weeks ago about this subject because
Yeah,
in Romania, we have models. This is a church model. This is
right.
something like a franchise. This is
Hmm.
our franchise. But I really didn't encounter a person, a man or a woman, who can champion that. To do things to in planting churches. So I think we have a problem in Romania in this area.
Yeah. And maybe you guys, people like you and Fonnie, are going to be that first generation, in Romania that begins this
I
and
will, I will.
begins to champion and coach and mentor future church planters. That's what so I'm trying to do that from a distance, like I did with Fonnie. And I've tried to, making myself available to you as well, Gabby, and to Adam as
Okay.
well, to do that. I know we're across the world, but still trying to, help be that champion for you, um, until you're able to
I
develop
put
that.
I have this, in my heart, guys. I think in when in 10 years, I'm trying to set a model if God will gonna help me. So it's like my desire from, I think, from 1 year started this in my heart, that I want to. So my desire is in 10 years I have uh, to be that pastor who gonna encourage other pastors to, to stay strong. And I don't know, probably with this program of planting church, I am more passionate to start something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I love it.
We can pray for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can pray for this.
I love that, man.
To
Mm.
complete the idea,
Yes.
uh, in Romania we have uh, uh, champions in the area of preaching. In
Hmm.
every church in Romania, you speak about preachers in their area or preachers that were the generation before us, and we know their names, and they went to evangelist events, and we know very, very well preachers. And I think the dream in some of the young men that went to seminary was this: I want to be like that preacher. And we had some colleagues, me and Fanny, that were they copied
Hmm.
um, even the gestures
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the expressions. And it was funny then, but I understand that that was their champion. But in
Yeah.
church planting, we do not have in Romania the
Yeah.
idea of champion.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe you and Finey will be the first.
Not yet. Not
Maybe you
yet.
and Finey will be the first. Yeah. How about
Or
you,
maybe
Adam?
I
Adam.
I think the fault of champion wasn't necessarily that he was famous, right? It can be an
Right.
ordinary
Yes. It's not,
person.
not famous. It's just, yeah, I think champion, I think the word champion may be throwing you off a little bit. Um, it's just somebody that, man, their heart is for church planting. They are passionate about church planting. And so they're going to be telling people about it. And, their conversations are going to, go back towards that as they talk to churches or pastors. This, man, we got to be planting churches. Um, I think I think it's getting lost a little bit just in the language, that word champion for you. But I'm trying to change it to where it's just somebody that, man, their heart is for church planting. They are passionate about church planting. Yeah, they're not going to necessarily be famous. I'm not famous. I'm trying to be a church planting champion as far as just telling others and training others, but I'm far from famous. But how about you, Adam? Do you have
How
anybody
about
that
me?
is coaching you, especially as you're going through this process of this local church now?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Chris, for sure, and then you and Aaron. So these are the guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And we plan to continue, and all of you. When I do this, man, I make a commitment to help and walk with you guys through things. That's why, Gabby, we've had some separate conversations. Adam, you and I and Aaron, we've had some separate conversations as well. Bonnie, I've had too many conversations to count, Um, but I mean, yeah, I'm trying to make myself available to you all for that, to help it any way that I can.
Appreciate
Um,
it.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
man. I appreciate you guys for entrusting us with this. Move on to chapter 4. So we go chapters 4 and 5. Chapter 4 asks the question, what makes a leader? It says throughout scripture, and this is on page 17, throughout scripture, as in life, the rise and fall of God's people is almost always tied to leadership. And you'll see that where the leadership was pursuing after God, God bless. When the leadership turned its back and eyes off of the Lord, we would see it fall. Leadership is service. I think it's just so important. Leadership is not defined primarily by who we are or what we can do, but how we leverage our lives on behalf of others. It even goes back to what the disciples were asking Jesus, man, who's going to be the greatest? And Jesus like, man, the greatest is the one who serves. You want to be the greatest and be the least of these. And then page 18, it says, in summary, a leader is someone who leverages their experience, influence, and abilities on behalf of God and others. For a leader, the quickest route to destruction is ability without humility. And we've probably all been around prideful leaders. We don't like following prideful leaders, but if you've ever been around a humble leader, man, it's infectious. You enjoy being around them because you trust them and you know that, man, they are truly trying to do what's best for you. When you're around a leader that's just trying to build themselves up, man, that's not attractive. Um, and a warning there in verse in on page 18, it says, "You will reproduce the best and worst of who you are as a coach." And so, a commitment to coaching means striving to be a better leader yourself. And so, man, if you're discipling somebody, a lot of times you'll disciple the best and the worst of who you are. So there's always a challenge to always check your heart anytime you're leading or discipling somebody else. So as it talks about leadership, the importance of humility and serving others, my question for you is how are you intentionally serving others within your ministry now? Or is it something you've
I'm
thought about?
available. I'm available right now for people. I'm trying to meet with them, to connect with them. So this is my word for this season. Available.
Yeah, so one of the ways you serve is I'm just going to make myself available for you as you need. Yeah. Adam, I know you serve a lot of people through the hub ministry. So what are some ways that you are intentionally just being a servant to them?
Yeah, lately actually, so here in the hub, I serve encouraging people as sharing gospel, or just being a friend or playing games with them. But lately, I've been more focusing on the pastoral side. Even though I'm not yet a pastor, I have the belief that just the decision doesn't make you. You should even before be interested and be the leader. So therefore, I'm now trying to be more intentional, meeting people and encouraging them, thinking how are they doing, not forgetting about them, and making sure that everyone is going in good direction and encouraging them in it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. How about you, Gabby, as you think about your core team, those 30 to 40 who are coming alongside of you to help? Have you thought about ways that you can intentionally serve them as the leader?
Um, I try to have every week meetings with the men in our group, just having a coffee and then discuss some some of the uh, areas that we want to develop. And then I started reading the Bible with some of them. We have uh, an app and we can make a comment there. So I have right now I have two men that we are reading together, and every day we are making a short comment there. So I think this is something that I'm trying intentionally to to get them to the Bible and to read the Bible together. And as Fana said, I'm available here and to all of the questions because we are not started yet. We are in this process of developing, and then we will launch and open officially the church. But in this period, there are a lot of questions. So I'm trying to learn from others like yourself, or to read the books that you gave me and other books. So to have a more clear direction. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to be very clear on what we are doing, and in the same time, I'm trying to be there with them. And I call them, I meet with them, and we have small groups already, and we have this kind of meetings. But beside that, I'm trying to
Yeah.
be near them. Yeah. So
Yeah,
in a
that's
way.
good. Yeah, just making yourself available to them. Yeah, and I think that's it's just important for us always to think about that is man, we never what we say is here, we're never above serving. And it's so important to have a servant's heart as a leader. And our model for that is Jesus. I mean, he himself washed the disciples' feet. You know, you don't see any greater act of service, than that right there. And so, continuing on as we finish up our discussion on developing leaders in the local church, this was the bulkiest of the chapters. But chapter 5 talks about defining the target. So if we're going to develop leaders, we got to have a target of who a leader is. What does he look like? And so we talk about the profile of a planting pastor. And it talks about the four things. One is character. It says character reflects not just how we live, spiritual maturity, but who rules our lives, gospel vitality. And then the key questions to assess character are: do they possess the spiritual maturity to lead a church, as according to 1 Timothy chapter 3? Do they trust more in the gospel than their abilities? And do they have a healthy view of God, themselves, and others? And then, so we want to have for you to be a potential planter, you need to have character and then convictions. You want to know whether they really believe it. Has the gospel moved from the head into their heart? So key questions to assess their convictions. Sorry, I mistyped that on page 22 is asking the question, what do they believe? Can they explain their beliefs like they are talking to a non-Christian? And then can they apply their beliefs to difficult situations? So a lot of times is we can have these spiritual talks to other pastors and believers, but can we relate the gospel to someone who is not a believer? I think that's just such an important aspect of of that planting pastor, because we're trying to reach people who are far from God and who don't know God. Adam, I mean, you really encounter this there through the hub ministry. You're constantly, explaining to non-Christians, what it looks like to follow Jesus. Third is competencies. A church planting pastor requires a certain set of skills. Every church planter is a pastor, but not every pastor is a church planter. And I think that's a very important distinguishment to make is so like every church planter has to have a pastor's heart, but not every pastor is called to be a church planter. There are certain skills that are involved in planting a church. And it talks about that on page 23. Some of the broad skills that church planners need to possess are leadership. Some of the questions are they motivated? Are they a self-starter? Have they demonstrated an ability to lead others? And then have they developed other leaders? So is a church planner, our church planner needs to be a leader. Because you are casting vision for something and you're trying to get people to come alongside, you've got to be able to lead. Another skill is disciple making. I mean, one of the things we say here is we send people out not to plant churches, but to make disciples, because if you make disciples, then the church will be planted. So do they relate well with the lost? Are they winning lost people to Christ? And then are they making disciples? And then last is preaching. Can they compellingly communicate God's word? Do people come back when they preach? Do they preach, or are they engaging? And then last is calling. It says, how do we know someone's called to plant a church? They possess the character, the convictions, and the competencies to plant a church. And so the key questions to assess calling is, can they articulate a clear and compelling vision to plant? And do their character, convictions, and competencies match up with their vision? I want to share my screen. It is in what I gave you. But right here, in these notes, what I wanted to do is just show you what we came up with here for Peace Church. So what I did is working through this is I came up with the 7 proven characteristics of a church planter. So if we bring someone on as a church planter, then these are the 7 characteristics that I want to see in their life to feel confident that they have truly been called and they are prepared as a church planter. So the main question we ask over the top is, would I be willing to join his church plant team and have him as my pastor? If I'm like, man, I would not go to his church, then he's probably not the church planter for us to send. And so the first one is proven character. The question is simply, does his life bear fruit? Does he meet the qualifications of eldership according to 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 7? Does he have an evident personal relationship with Jesus? And then does he live a gospel-centered life? Is the gospel shaping his life? Number 2 is a proven multiplier. Would I want him to duplicate himself in my church? If I'm going, hey, I don't want a person like that in my church, then probably not. But does he continually begin Christ-centered relationships that lead to life change? Has he ever trained a leader and let go of a ministry? Has he led a life group, multiplied a life group, and coached a life group leader? And then has he led a D group and multiplied a D group? So those are questions that are pertinent to us as Peace Church, because that is our discipleship pathway is through our life groups and our D groups. And then another one, 3, is a proven initiator. Would I trust him to start ministries in my church? Has he started a ministry from scratch or only inherited other people's ministries? And then has he led a healthy ministry that he started? Part of being a church planter is you're planting, you're starting something from scratch. I need to see, have you done anything like that before? Number 4 is proven communicator. Would I want him to be my pastor? Has he led a ministry where he was the main communicator? Has he proven that he knows how to exegete a passage properly? And that does he preach in a way that engages unchurched people? And that's so important, because a lot of who you're going to be ministering to in church plants are people who are completely unchurched and lost. Can you communicate the gospel in a way that connects with them? Number 5 is proven leadership. Would I follow him? Does he possess the ability to gather followers? Does he have the ability to cast a clear vision? And then how does he deal with conflict in ministry? That's a really important one. And then that one also touches on to that humility piece as well. Like I want to hear, like if you've been in ministry, I know you've had conflict before. I want to know what happened, what caused the conflict, how did you resolve the conflict? With that, I want to know, do you blame others? Was it always someone else's fault? Or can you show humility and say, hey, I messed up and then it caused this conflict? Number six is proven family commitment. Does his family share his vision? Does he have the support of his wife and children if he's married and has kids? Does his wife believe in his ability to plant a church? If his wife's like, there ain't no way he can plant a church, then it's going to be hard for me to get alongside and support that. Number seven is proven church affirmation. The question is, does Peace Church or his sending church have confidence in him? Does he meet the requirements of the church planter assessment of Peace Church? And then has he been ordained or licensed to preach? So that is our profile of what we came up with of what a church planter should look like. So I know that's down the road for you as you think about that, but as you think about being a church that's planting churches, you just need to be clear, like it said in that chapter, like defining who a church planter is, so that you can do that. And then thinking about team members to send out a planting team member, same thing, four same areas: character, convictions, competencies, and calling. They need to hit all of those. And so some of the things that I want to just touch on are like convictions, asking them questions like, what is the church and why is it so important? Also, what is your view of the Bible? And then asking questions about social and cultural issues. The questions that they suggest here are, can people of other religious traditions be saved? What is your view on homosexuality and gender issues? I don't know what it's like in Europe, but I know here that is a major barrier. The idea of homosexuality and transgenderism and things like that. Seeing where they stand on those cultural issues. And then competencies. I love the second question under that one. How are they leveraging their vocation, their job for mission? You want to see that they are already living as a missionary and then calling. And one of the things it gives a warning on page 27, and it says, church plants are great places for broken Christians to hide. And so I think that's very important as you think about, hey, why do you want to plant a church? What is that calling? And it says there on page 28, the best planting team members are those who are already doing it in their churches. And so I'm going to share my screen again, and walk through the profile that we came up with of what a church member should be. So we came up with the four proven characteristics. The main question again, would I want this person on my church planting team? If I wouldn't want them on my church planting team, I'm not going to send them out with somebody else. Same thing. Number one, proven character. Does their life bear fruit? Do they have an evident personal relationship with Jesus? Do they live a gospel-centered life? Are there any spiritual struggles that would hinder their testimony? If they are married, how is their marriage? Do they work well with others? And then how do they handle conflict? And I think that's the marriage one's huge, because, man, when you go out to plant a church, you're probably going to encounter spiritual warfare like never before, and Satan will attack anything. And we've seen that from church members team members that we've sent out. Where we thought the marriage was strong, but the move exposed some weaknesses within their marriage. And so, man, you need to check on their marriage if they're married. Number two is a proven multiplier. The question is, would I want them to duplicate themselves in my church? Again, do they continually begin Christ in relationships that lead to life change? Had they led someone to Christ and discipled them before? And then how are they leveraging their job for mission? Are they living as a missionary in their city now? Number three is a proven supporter. Do they line up theologically and philosophically with us? Do they have a clear understanding of the gospel? Do they agree with our core beliefs and our doctrinal statements? And then do they agree with our ministry approach? Are they on the same page with us as a church? And that's just so important. And then the fourth one is proven church commitment. Do they faithfully serve at Peace Church? Do they meet the requirements of the church plant team member assessment? Are they currently following our map as a church? Are they knowing, growing, serving, and going? And then do they faithfully give of their time, give of their talents, and give of their treasures? And so the bottom line is this: they must live sent before they are sent. So important thing is to see, hey, if you're going to be a team member of a church plant, we need to see that you're already living that way, because I don't think you're going to magically become a missionary just because you go to a new city. We got to see that that's already in their heart. So that's a walkthrough of the first 5 chapters of developing leaders in the local church, and then the fifth one just kind of showing you what we came up with as far as our target at Peace Church. Any questions so far on the beginning of developing leaders in the local church? I know it's a lot, but and coaching was the main piece. All right. I I need to look at something because I know, Gabby, you've not started reading Replicate. So I don't want to jump too far ahead. Hold on 1 second. Oh, sorry. Let me screen share again and go to our schedule really quick.
So when you are trying to put somebody to serve in Peace Church,
Yeah.
uh, are you going to this question? I guess
Yeah,
it's
as we're looking for,
great.
so the last time
Those.
we sent someone out was when they went with Amos to California to Chula Vista.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last time we've taken people through that whole the characteristics and really
Mm-hmm.
assess them. And I have a questionnaire, like an application that they fill out. And so what I did with that application is I tried to write that application in a way that it would answer all of those questions, where I could judge um so we are going to, in 2 weeks on the 27th, we'll have Chris Davenport with us, and we'll be finishing up the fifth mark of a healthy church planter, which is collaborator. And then on March the 6th, we're going to talk about replicate chapters 1 through 9. So I think what I'm going to do today is pause on discussing replicate chapters 1 through 3, since Gabby would just be confused, and try to get that ebook, find an ebook version to get that to Gabby. The good thing is the chapters are short, and so that's not until March 6th. So we have a good 3 weeks to read through chapters 1 through 9. And so on that Zoom call, it'll be just we'll talk through just replicate chapters 1 through 9, and I'll make sure Chris and Ashley know that. So we're gonna hold off on jumping into replicate for today, um, and we'll pick it
What I
up
want
March the
you
6th.
just to, I want to say you something about. It
Okay,
was
all
a
right.
little bit about this replicate. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how you will handle
Okay,
for us Europeans with this, because it's a lot of personal experience from America with the
sure.
culture of habits, and
Yeah.
I'm curious. It will be a challenge for us, and
Okay.
probably we will learn
So
from this
yeah, so what we'll do
story.
is as we discuss it, we will talk about it. This is obviously written within their context of being in a Baptist church in the United States. Actually
Yeah.
in Tennessee, where they are. So what we're going to do is, as we read this, we're going to talk through more finding principles, because even though I'm in North Carolina, only a state away, not everything they do applies to us. Definitely for Chris and Ashley, the culture in California is drastically different than the culture in Tennessee. And so what we're going to do is, through this, is look at the disciple making principles and talk through that, and then really discuss what does it look like to apply this principle in Timisoara, in Yash, in Czech Republic, if that makes sense.
Sure,
So,
sure.
all right, I'm going to stop the recording now. So Chris and Ashley, I'll verbally relay that to you, but we'll be in March, on March 6th, we'll do replicate chapters 1 through 9.